Hello dear friends, hope you're all doing well. It's Angelina and Dima here from Walking Edge World. Today we'll do a very special type of video that we've never done before. Comparison of the two hiking trails, Tour de Mont Blanc and GR11. And we decided to compare these trails because they're both high elevation, long distance, multi-day hikes located in Europe, and they're quite popular among many hikers. We have been hiking for more than 5 years now, have done the Tour de Mont Blanc several years ago, and recently have hiked the GR11 trail, doing it in parts.
We have already made separate tips and final thoughts videos for both of the trails where we go into details, so make sure to check them out also. So this video will talk about what are the main differences between these trails and what's special about each one, discussing all details and sharing tips based on our experience and opinion. So if you're considering doing one of these trails, but not sure which one to choose, this is the video for you.
Starting off, we'd like to mention several general facts about these two trails. So the Tour de Mont Blanc is a circular trail around 170 kilometers in total, and it goes around the summit of Mont Blanc. It crosses France, Italy and Switzerland. It was our first challenging long-distance high-elevation trail that we've done in 11 days, and it is usually done in 6 to 10 days.
The GR11 is 840 kilometers long trail that is stretching the entire length of Spanish Pyrenees, from Andaribia Atlantic coast to Cap de Creus on Mediterranean coast or vice versa. It is usually divided 46-day long sections, but it's possible to do in parts and your own stages as we did, and covered approximately 280 kilometers in 20 days.
The first category we're going to talk about is the difficulty of both trails. We do think that each of these trails is challenging and demanding. You need to be in the proper shape and do some mountain training in advance.
The Tour de Mont Blanc seemed more trodden overall, because we think more people are hiking it, and it makes it easier. With GR11 sometimes we had to trample through the bushes and get through very narrow paths in some parts.
In addition, the elevation changes, gain and loss, are smoother with Tour de Mont Blanc with around 10,000 meters compared to GR11 40,000 something meters. Sure enough, the GR11 trail is a much longer trail, but still, looking at the elevation profile, it is definitely more sharp and abrupt. Tour de Mont Blanc highest point being 2,537 meters with 4 major passes over 2,000 meters, and GR11 having the maximum height of 2,729 meters and around 6 passes over 2,500 meters. So this makes GR11 definitely much more challenging than Tour de Mont Blanc, and proves that these are not just our assumptions. Of course, the difficulty level will vary depending on the area of GR11 you're hiking through. The central part is the most challenging, going through the high number of mountain passes and forming the big part of the trail. The GR11 rocky, steep and long ascents and descents are well known, and some of them can be quite extreme. On Tour de Mont Blanc, on the other hand, the ascents and descents are more gentle and less rocky and loose, and the paths are well trodden, as we already mentioned.
So because of the difficulty of GR11, we wouldn't recommend doing more than 12 or 15 kilometers a day. Also keeping in mind the accumulation of tiredness and sore muscles over the days. It is better to divide it wisely to avoid burning out quickly.
On Tour de Mont Blanc we didn't do more than 20 kilometers a day, especially if you carry with you the food supplies and camping gear. It becomes very hard to hike longer distances. We would advise to tackle the trail in parts, not being too ambitious at the start, and take the rest days in between to have the better experience.
The terrain and landscapes can be at times very similar. On both of the trails you are hiking through many green valleys and rocky mountain passes, meeting many water streams, rivers and waterfalls, enjoying the peacefulness and beauty of nature. Of course, the landscapes and views will depend and change according to the season when you're hiking.
The central part of GR11 is much more rocky and deserted looking, and less green than the Mediterranean and especially Atlantic coast side. Also, because you're walking most of the time very high in the mountains, you don't feel such a drastic elevation difference. It is more peaceful and solitary-like, and you are more likely to hike alone and enjoy the calmness of surroundings. The Tour de Mont Blanc has very sublime, magnificent views due to the height of the Mont Blanc mountain itself. We were simply amazed every time we looked up how high and majestic it is. Also, there's always a snow cap which persists throughout the year, and the major glacier that is hard to forget, especially if it's your first time seeing it. There are a huge amount of high waterfalls that look incredible too. there are much more people hiking Tour de Mont Blanc, and thus it can become crowded in the high season and you are less likely to hike alone. The GR11 is one direction hiking trail, while Tour de Mont Blanc is circular, that gives you the opportunity to walk around the Mont Blanc peak and admire it from all the sides, enjoying different views and landscapes. Also, because of it being circular, the sun angle is different for you almost every other day or so, the same as the wind. Another speciality of this trail is while on GR11 you hike only in one country, Spain, on Tour de Mont Blanc you get to visit 3 different countries, France, Italy and Switzerland, and get new experiences and emotions, as well as try some traditional cuisine of these countries if you wish. The marking of the trail was great on both of the hikes. Just on some crossroads it could be confusing, but overall was quite good. We would still recommend taking some paper maps or GPS map for guidance. Talking about accommodation, we have to say that we personally did wild camping most of the time on both trails. We did carry our tent with us, and for us it is a part of the trail enjoyment is to be camping out. Sometimes we stayed at the campgrounds also.
We can say that wild camping is definitely a challenge everywhere, whether it would be because of the terrain or populated areas. Usually you'll need to wander around to find a secluded place. Also, it will vary on the area you're passing through.
While doing Tour de Mont Blanc, it seemed that we met more campgrounds on the way that were located right on the trail or very close. We think we have stayed in 5 campgrounds. With wild camping it is more complicated because of the different rules that every country puts up. In France it was more relaxed and clear, when in Italy the camping rule was very strict. We think they restrict it in certain areas because the Tour de Mont Blanc is more popular and they want to avoid the groups camping and damaging nature. Mentioning the refuges on Tour de Mont Blanc, they are all payable as far as we know, and you need to book them in advance to rely on them. They can be quite expensive in comparison to campgrounds. Overall, we found Tour de Mont Blanc being more commercialized, so to say, with more developed infrastructure and facilities, but also more payable and expensive stuff. The GR11 trail, on the other hand, being less popular and less developed, feels more wild and deserted and less populated. There we met only 2 or 3 campgrounds in 20 days, which were located on the way, and all the rest days we were wild camping. We still had a challenge to find a spot to camp because of the rocky or hilly terrain depending on the region. Most times the flat spots were right on the side of the trail, and because we wanted to find a secluded place, we had to spend more time scouting around. Quite enjoyed camping in Andorra and around, as we were able to find some amazing spots close to the river. The refuges on GR11 are partly payable and partly not. The ones that are free look like the simple rocky shelters. It is possible to camp next to them for the night, as you normally will find some flat spots nearby.
On both trails it's important to set up a camp close to the dusk and preferably pack everything until the sunrise.
The places where to resupply are more rare on GR11, and on some high mountain stretches you might not meet any towns nor villages for 3-4 days. But on some stages you pass a village almost every day. There you may always find a bar or restaurant and a small shop normally. Sometimes it's harder to find a supermarket, but anyway, usually you are able to find some food. On Tour de Mont Blanc you also meet a village or town every other day or so, depending on your stages, and so it is not a problem to resupply. The nice thing about the tour is that you get to try the different cuisine of 3 countries, as we already mentioned. We noticed that the prices can be quite high, especially when buying at the refuges. Chamonix Mont Blanc is quite an expensive place, as well as the Switzerland part, of course.
The water sources are abundant and it's not a problem to find on both trails. There are lots of rivers and waterfalls as well as lakes, where you can gather some water.
On GR11 we noticed that the water could change the smell or taste, probably because of high concentration of certain minerals. We just used our water filter always and even boiling in some cases. On Tour de Mont Blanc, the taste of water is unique and hard to beat. There's almost no taste at all and you drink it very easily. The alpine water sources are probably the best, and even the filter sometimes is needless. The differences of what gear to take is minimal. However, for both of the trails we would advise to go as light as possible and be careful not to overload your backpack. 10 kg for men and 5 kg for women is a good reference number. The usual gear to take are raincoats and rain covers, trekking poles, some warm clothes, lots of snacks, water filter and a solar panel if you plan to wild camp. We found that on Tour de Mont Blanc we had to cross quite a few water streams and found our running shoes to be completely wet, so you may consider wearing boots. It's just something to keep in mind. We personally always prefer to wear trail running shoes for the comfort reasons. Make sure to watch our What's in the Backpack series and gear selection for more detailed information. On both of the trails the nature is magnificent, and flora and fauna is very rich and diverse. We met mostly domestic farm animals like goats, sheep, cows and horses. Sometimes you can meet the mountain goats, roe deers and marmots, not counting the birds and reptiles.
The best months to hike these trails are of course from June to September, July and August being the best months, mostly because of the more mild temperatures and trail conditions. There won't be any snow left then. In June and September there can be some snow parts on the trail, especially in the Alps.
We were hiking the Tour de Mont Blanc in June, and that was one of our brightest memories, is when we faced the snowy uphill and then many quite dangerous snowy parts. Also on Tour de Mont Blanc, the weather seemed to be more extreme to us. Thunderstorms were another highlight of the trip for us. We think we experienced the most number of thunderstorms in a hike, and it was on the tour. The storm can come very suddenly, also with fierce wind and even ice. They can be quite intense. We made a conclusion that it may be because of the high summit of Mont Blanc that rather attracts the clouds and precipitations more often. They are forming around it and they can stay there for longer. In fact, seeing the Pic du Mont Blanc with no clouds is a rare luck.
On GR11 we were hiking in August and we were very lucky with the weather, with mostly clear and sunny days. It felt more stable and mild.
We just got several thunderstorms at night, which is very typical for the mountains and higher passes. It is usual to see the thunderstorms in the mountains, even though the morning can be sunny and nice. In the afternoon, closer to the evening, going to night, you can get some thunderstorms. But it certainly depends on the year and season and also area where you hike. Finishing off this video, we want to say that each one of these trails is unique and spectacular in its own way. The places you hike through are amazing and very scenic, and it makes you want to capture all around and just soak up all this beauty. We personally enjoyed every bit of these trails and collected lots of memorable moments from them. So the choice is up to you, and we hope you find this video informative and useful.
Don't forget to check out our separate in-depth videos talking about each one of the trails, as well as gear reviews and tips, trail episodes and documentaries. Let us know in the comments below which trail you're thinking of doing and what is your plan. Also, you can always ask us any questions. If this was helpful to you, give this video a like and subscribe if you like to see more videos like this in the future. Have a wonderful hiking experience and we'll see you in our next video.
Bye!